Warning, Supernatural The Crossroads contains adult language and discussions. If you're easily offended, do not continue to listen.
Oh, Dad. Oh, Dad. Oh, Dad.
I went to the crossroads. Held on my
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of Supernatural The Crossroads Post-Series 2022. This is your premier Supernatural fan show. Hopefully you guys have been listening for quite some time. If you haven't, and this is the first time you're stopping by, we are excited to say hello and also warn you now. It'll probably get graphic at some point.
Oh, very
That's
graphic.
just a Ryan thing that happens. We can't control it. Then we all feed into it.
No, and then I get a whole month of it.
Then you get, oh, God, is that going to be an annual thing?
Yeah, it has to be.
Actually, we're approaching the year anniversary of
Oh,
the month
fuck,
of
we
Ryan.
are,
I want to say it was in June.
the summer, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I'm gonna have to come up with some more programming. I'll start
Some
thinking about
quality
that. The
graphic.
good stuff, like the stuff that you guys really listen for. You guys don't listen for us to break down stuff. You listen to Thomas, read fan fiction slash fiction. Come in my fist or some shit that he said. I don't remember what it was, but I think we have a drop somewhere. Yeah, that's what you guys want to listen.
One producer, please.
Yeah. But
Now I'm under pressure.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd have that spun up.
I know you were hoping for that.
I was. I just, it's probably my favorite drop. But
That's the
we
kind
are.
of quality content they
It's
can
the
look
good-
forward
it's the
to.
clean-
Not this episode here in which
Yeah,
we
this
discuss the
is-
nuanced
this
look
is
at
too
the
much.
episodes directed by star Jensen Ackles. But instead, it's the sex stuff that they've come for.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Well, if you guys are into that either way, please check us out on iTunes and leave us a review.
baby.
Don't
Come
listen
for
to
me.
that part.
Come
There's
for me.
nothing to hear there. Stop,
all out all
stop
over my
that.
fist.
God damn it. God damn it. Never live that. I'll be 87 years old and someone will play
don't
that.
worry. I'm going to find some dirtier shit for you this year.
Month of Ryan's coming up, so that
Fucking
means
duck, dude.
I'm sure we're going to be reading some filth,
Yeah. Oh, absolute nastiness.
some disgusting slash fiction that will no doubt give me and Thomas nightmares again.
Do you use
Well-
an incognito mode when you look up those stories, or do you have like
He
just the
doesn't
weirdest
care.
I don't
Look
ads?
at that guy.
So do
Give a
you get
fuck.
ads for like Bad Dragon and shit?
No, I don't
afterwards?
I honestly don't get ads for any of that stuff, dude. It's just slash fiction. You just go into a Reddit. It's not a big deal. That stuff's on the internet. It's if it's there.
There's a lot of things on the internet probably shouldn't be there. That's
not an excuse.
If you can think it, it's on the internet.
Jesus Christ. All right, besides Rule 34 over here, if you guys head on over to iTunes, that is our preferred platform, and leave us a review, we would greatly appreciate it. Hopefully we're a 5-star show in your eyes, but I think from this intro, that is certainly not the case. But you guys...
We're definitely a 6
it's
now.
a 6
Oh, for sure.
Oh, man. But today we are, again, talking about the second installment in a little series discussion we have started about the episodes directed by star Jensen Ackles. And this has been a bit more technical and in-depth. One of the more technical and in-depth concepts we've done for this show for some time. There's a lot of plot, lore, narrative, world-building things that we get into pretty regularly, but this is more of an actual look at technique, skills, and watching him develop as a director and really trying to figure out his definitive directing style. And our end game is to sort through the 6 episodes that he has directed and look for what kind of recognizable techniques that could be identified as hallmarks of his style. Something that you can look at and say, when he directs an episode, whether it's a movie or a TV show in the future, this is what we can kind of come to expect.
Yeah, and it's not always easy to find those
Identify.
definitive directing styles in a TV show.
No.
Because when it comes to TV, the people who call the shots for the most part are the writers as well as the cinematographer, and the directors are not used at the same capacity as a feature film director.
Correct.
So it's a little bit harder to get away with flexing your creative style. It can happen, and it does. And that's pretty much the reason why we started doing these shows, because we wanted to not just say Jensen's a good director, because the episodes he directs are good, but I want to find out what makes it good besides simply the writing, because arguably you can say the writing is why it's good. Well, what's he doing?
Yeah, but there's always
making those scenes pop, making that script come to life.
There's always a nuance, I think, too, like with a director. Like, I think I was struggling to try to like figure out what I wanted to say, because I'm not as technical as you guys. So I have a hard time kind of thinking outside that box, that I'm not a casual viewer, but someone who sits down and watches the episode and just enjoys the episode for what it is. And I had to look at this episode a little bit deeper and kind of sit there and analyze a little bit more than I normally would. Almost like how we do when we do like a movie review. I had to sit down and look at this episode and go, what do I see different from the last episode that we just watched? Or what do I see different from an episode that's just randomly on, right? And it was interesting that when I did that, I was able to actually come up with a couple things. And one of them is so quick, but it's so cool that I was like, oh, I don't think they ever have done that before, or maybe just I don't remember it happening, but I'll talk about it later. But I definitely had to sit down and look at it a different way.
There is definitely a lot of little things in this.
I feel like he has like these, he throws these little things in that most directors would just maybe either do or maybe even overuse.
Right.
And I feel like he just kind of throws it in there real quick.
Sparingly.
And then everyone's like for me, I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I think that's the kind of you get with Jensen or some of the guests, the people that are on the show directing, is maybe they can throw a little bit of that in there and get away with it because they're not going to nitpick a 10-second scene or whatever it is. So I feel like with him, and we have already done Weekend at Bobby's, which I think we all love that episode, right?
Yeah.
All the way around.
I think we all just absolutely love that episode. So it's interesting to see that little nuance. And I actually think it's really cool that, he did as many episodes as he did. So we have a little bit of stuff to cover. But yeah, I definitely had to sit down and look at it differently than what I normally do.
I'm glad you did. I wasn't sure, because sometimes you don't. You don't do the homework, but to hear that you actually sat down and took a look.
Gold star for Ryan.
I think this is the first time for everything.
I have a very hard time. So like my ADHD kicks in for shit like this. So I have a hard time sitting down and I don't want to use the word overanalyze, but I just have a hard time sitting down with a TV show and doing this. I think I have no problem doing it with a movie. I think
that comes from what Mike said. With a movie, they make all the decisions. Everything is under that umbrella from them and comes from that source. In the TV show world, especially with a show like Supernatural, it's very different. Like they have, we've talked to Guy Normanby when he directed in season 10. There's not as much there that they have control over. One of the main things, one of the more obvious things, is the way that they block out a scene and have the two actors or the multiple actors move through the space, create intimacy, create tension, or how they deliver their lines. Recently, I'd say probably the best example we had of that is the Gordon and Dean discussion in the barn, or that wrecked house was amazing.
From season 2?
Season 2,
with the lighting and everything.
And that's something where the director can really shine in those kind of moments. But they are slaves to the overarching story and the overall style of the showrunners of the season they're a part of.
Yeah. There's already an established style when a director comes on that set.
Yeah.
And there can be other film conventions utilized within the director's wheelhouse, such as some of the settings or some of the lighting decisions, props, various camera angles, if the cinematographer is willing to play ball.
Yeah, of course.
And some of these things will be under them, but a lot of the time that can fall on other members of the production team. So for us, this being only his second directed episode, it still might be a little bit difficult, but I think there's a couple key things we can see start to bubble to the surface or start to become a little bit of a repeating pattern now, which will eventually, out of the 6 episodes, probably go on to be part of his signature style or his artistic flair that he will bring to it. I think one thing it's not, to me, it's not very good in this episode. One thing that he then grows to be far better at later by the final installment of the episodes he's directed, but I'll save that for when we get really into it. So just so we're clear, this is not exactly a review of this episode. Eventually, we'll get around to doing a proper review of season 7, episode 3, The Girl Next Door. But this is more from a stylistic choice, directing choice, filmmaking standpoint. So we've gone through Weekend at Bobby's. The next one on the table is the one we're discussing today, The Girl Next Door, of the 6 that he had. After that was Heartache, then Soul Survivor, The Bad Seed, and season 15, episode 4, Atomic Monsters.
And none of those episodes are bad episodes.
No. Really not. No.
Yeah. They're all strong episodes, even outside of directing.
Yeah, I don't think we gave any of these a bad.
Atomic Monsters is amazing.
One of the best ones of season 15.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, again, this is going to be a discussion about the stylistic and directing choices of season 7, episode 3, The Girl Next Door, which was the second episode he directed. And now this one was written by Andrew Dabb and Daniel Laughlin. A interesting duo. The more that we've talked about them, the longer we've been doing this show. So let's take a look at this entire episode and see what exactly it is saying. And then from that, we can maybe determine whether or not, based on specific elements, choice scenes, specific blocking and direction, if Jensen was able to effectively bring the meaning of this script to the surface and really deliver on what it was trying to say through his imagery, through his style, and all the different decisions he made.
Thomas, now I did not tell you this before, but if you want the definitions of the different meanings,
it's at the bottom.
Yeah,
right?
Okay, you saw it. Okay,
Yeah.
And the reason I know you know them, but if you want to remind the audience when we get to them, that's where they are.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure their audience that
Should we
aren't
just get
aware
into that
of
now?
reverential. Yeah, why not?
So let's just get to the definitions we're talking about. So the levels of meaning when it comes to directing a script or telling a story. There's referential meaning, which is the summary of a film's plot. The things that happen. Do they actually have Sam talk to Dean and the gun goes off at the right time and then they go and kill the monster? Like the basic things, A, then B, then C.
Right.
The most simplistic meaning.
It's what most people, journalist reviews do. When you go to your Rotten Tomatoes or you go to the blog,
Right.
that's pretty
this
much
is a story about blah, 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 and how the Avengers finally team up to defeat Thanos by, that kind of thing. Then after that, we have explicit meaning. This is the level at one where one would find the film's message, its moral point, the lesson in some way that it is trying to teach. What's a good example? Really, Jaws.
The lesson is don't get in the water.
Well,
Pretty simple.
don't get eaten.
Don't die.
Don't get eaten. Swimming's bad.
Be smarter than a
in the-
fish.
Yeah, swimming in the ocean's bad. There's sharks. It's pretty
That sounds
self-explanatory.
like the fear tactics my mother used growing up.
No,
By
like
the
a
way,
good,
you're in the ocean. The ocean has sharks. Therefore, you will die.
a good example is like Godzilla and the power of man's use of atomic weapons and how it'll corrupt nature and nature
Jurassic
coming
Park.
back.
Yeah.
Science gone wrong, playing God, these kind of concepts. Then you have implicit meaning, and this is more abstract or below the surface, and it's affords a little bit more room for disagreement, competing claims. I think if you're a fan of Critique Revolve, the more recent review of The Power of the Dog has a lot of implicit meaning discussion
Yeah.
as to what exactly is actually being said.
Yeah, like
in
at
this
the end
movie.
of Inception. Was the top spinning? Was it not spinning? Did it stop? Did it not stop? Who knows? It cuts out at the end. You never know.
Yeah. Or your favorite porn. Did she actually orgasm or was it
real?
Did she come or not come?
Technically, you could assign implicit meaning to my life as well when I have sex.
Yeah.
Like, did it actually
Did
satisfy
he actually have sex or did he not have
well,
sex?
okay, yeah. We can go that route too. Am I really a virgin or am I not?
And
That's
then,
awful.
Yeah, that's
and then
pretty
we
bad.
have symptomatic meaning. And this is a kind of incorporation of all the other 3 levels. It's a film story as well as what it's trying to say. It's about the ideology of the movie. what it has to say about social values at the time that it's made, truthfully. And for the purpose of this discussion, this is typically what we're going to be talking about when we speak to meaning or intent. So there's what happens, the message below the surface, what it's really trying to hammer home, narratively speaking, and really what is all of this about, and what is this piece of art trying to say beyond just good versus evil or something to that effect.
Which Supernatural is filled with symptomatic meaning. In fact, that's, for the most part, if we had to pinpoint one specific area out of these 4 definitions that we typically utilize when we do this show, we probably do a combination of the 3, which would mean we do symptomatic meaning. That's pretty much how we break down our shows during the run of Supernatural.
Right. And so with this one, we're going to be talking a little bit, we have to look a little bit back towards the previous one. Weekend at Bobby's had a pretty clear intent, and we discussed it thoroughly. It was his first foray into directing, and it really was all about Bobby's role in this show, for himself, for the boys, why he does what he does, what it means about hard work, what it means about doing the right thing despite the cost, family, the implications of that between Crowley's family and Bobby and the Winchesters. It's all fairly simple to understand. And this episode is a little bit harder to really break down and decipher what exactly Jensen's contribution was and what is placed in the episode for the purpose of the myth arc.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why we're doing these shows, to see if there's a definitive directorial contribution.
And this one, I had a little some difficulty with this one.
Yeah, and I wonder if part of that is because of the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, possibly.
Not so much on how it affected this episode to me, but how this entire meaning and point doesn't really seem to be relevant for much of season 7.
Yeah, it's the overarching story.
It's like there's a story that's starting in the first couple of episodes, even including this one.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of goes on ice for the longest time and doesn't really matter by the end.
Till season 8. This aspect, the moral implications of this episode, it comes back in full force in season 8.
In season 8. Yeah.
But this is the beginning of that, though. This is the beginning, but you are right. We start it, and then we don't really get back to it. And that's why this episode was hard for me, because I can definitely see what they were doing. And a part of me kept going back to season 8. Well, this is definitely a part of the moral or ethical implications of monster killing. Do we kill all monsters? Are we in this gray area yet?
Can evil be transformed, or can you save it?
Yeah. I mean, sure. If you look at what the show was doing up to this point, from seasons 1 to 6, and this is the beginning of 7, so let's just say 1 to 6, there's always been that implication about Sam being a monster himself, and whether or not he should be put down.
Well, it's the story that they do in almost all TV shows like this, like Dexter. Can the bad guy be a good guy? And I think, it's that the story with this one is really hard to...
And is there any wiggle room?
Yeah, where's the gray area?
Yeah.
Right?
And who makes the decision on that?
And then up until season 7, it's always been black or white, right? There has really been no...
I'd say until season 6.
Yeah, you're right.
Season 6 really introduces this concept at the end.
But you are right. Very much black and white.
It's black and white.
Yeah.
You're a monster, you die. If you're, and so this has that kind of moral implication of like, okay, maybe there is a gray area. And I think this also goes back to the both characters, where Dean was very black or white, and Sam has always been kind of in a gray area because Sam has that dark side.
Well, go ahead.
And I think that's why this episode, it is weird though, Thomas. Like you guys said, it doesn't really have any implication until season 8. So,
and I think had this seen its true end point, or even if you had kind of fast forwarded to season 8, that difference in ideology between the brothers would make a lot more sense by the time we get to the end of season 9 and even 11, and how they kind of heal that relationship.
Well, and I
but
think
here it feels like we started something hard stop,
right?
a year goes by and then we kind of pick it up
It's
again.
like, okay. And
Well, that could also have a lot to do with the fact that we lost our showrunner.
No, that's what I'm
through.
saying.
Right.
I'm saying that's what caused that.
But it's
okay,
interesting too, like when you look at the last like 13, 14, and 15, there was no gray area. There was a gray area. It was like, okay, are you a good person? You're a
What
good
does that mean?
Yeah, like, okay, you are a good person, but you're a monster. Okay, well then we're gonna let it slide because we trust you. Right. And I feel like they went from like black or white, gray area with this episode, and then of course Dean making that the decision, and then as we got later in the seasons, it was like, okay, there's a gray area. So
Yeah, it changed the value.
it did
system
absolutely.
a
Well,
lot.
I think it's team free will. You have that choice, right, to be good or bad. It's your choice, right?
But that's all implicit meaning, and what we were talking about, where it's like
Right.
the symptomatic, a lot more deeper level than what's being said. Because on the surface level of this episode, it really is an episode about Sam Winchester.
Yep.
Its referential meaning quickly works with what we know of Sam, what we know of his prior relationship. It's designed to flesh out his backstory a little bit more and some of the childhood experiences he's had in a way that lets us look inward. It's not Sam and his relationship to Dean or his relationship to his dad that's at the focal point, but it's Sam and his relationship to somebody else. That person particularly being a monster. And this episode is very close to the previous season when Sam was soulless and did some pretty fucking unethical things.
And awesome things.
And amazing things.
With those abs, he can't
It
go wrong.
did. They were sinful.
He slayed some people with those abs.
Oh,
That
and he wa-
prostitute.
Yeah. He dropped
He washed some shirts on those too, I'm sure.
the panties.
Yeah.
Shirts.
Oh,
Fuck
man.
shirts. Like some
Nobody's wearing shirts over there.
Oh,
Give me your panties. Why? I'm going to wash them for you.
I'm gonna wash them on my abs.
I'm going to try that. But first, I got to get abs.
Well, you got to get abs,
Yeah.
then you can.
Yeah. And then I got to find the woman that's willing to give me
Right,
your
to
panties.
give you your panties because she's
Yeah.
like,
Right.
you got some of those weirdos that buys panties in vending machines.
Yeah. So there's
Yeah.
lots of steps I have to get. I have to work through.
This is a.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah, it's a season by season kind of thing. Season 1,
And
get
like
abs.
that, it'll take 6 seasons.
Season 2, find girl that wants to give panties. Season 3, wash panties on abs. Season 4,
Am I going to be a part of this? Because I thought I was talking about me. I wanted to wash the panties.
yeah, I'm the director of your
perfect.
seasons.
My
yeah.
life. My life.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'd watch that.
Season 4 gets man's panties. Season 5.
I'm going to
That was a
cancel.
twist. That was a big twist coming.
I'm going to cancel this show.
All right. So he did a lot of unethical things previously. Before that, he was the vessel for Lucifer, and he's responsible for letting Lucifer out of the cage. There's a lot of red marks or black marks against his record at this time in the last couple of years. Had to do some terrible things and was even killed for it by other hunters, by various other groups, repeatedly attempted to. Judgment Day, all of this stuff about him that was kind of originally intended to be kind of bookended with his self-sacrifice by jumping into the cage, now's undone. And now, after the entire Eve Castiel betrayal, Leviathans are now free. We doesn't feel like it in the very beginning of this episode, but we do have a bit of a breather. Several weeks have gone by, and now we're just kind of stuck with Sam and his inner demons, literally being Lucifer at this time, and wondering what he's doing, what is real, and not sure where he stands in the world, and knowing he's responsible for a lot of the terrible things that have transpired recently. And so, on paper, he was a lot like his childhood friend, Amy Pond, the Kitsune, as they connect pretty easily. They have a similar backstory. They have similar childhood experiences growing up. I've seen the ball of twine twice or 3 times, and both are not impressed by it. Both feel like freaks in their own world, which is actually true in both cases.
Yeah.
And so it allows us to make that parallel. It allows us to see that, yes, there is a referential meaning, the intent between Sam and his inward struggle, being a monster, not wanting to follow in his father's footsteps, wanting to set out on his own life, feeling like he's controlled by external forces and forced to do things they don't want to do. Amy has the exact same, if different flavor situation. So there we have the referential and the explicit, in which, look at these two. They're both monsters. They're the same. They have similar situations going on. Now, beyond that, a deeper meaning, the implicit meaning, we have a little bit more to interpret. And taking a look at the directing of the episode, we probably say that it's about. Okay, so first of all, let me say how we get to this point. Ultimately, how do you discern something like the implicit meaning and say, what is it all about? Well, honestly, while this is a little bit complicated, it's also a great example of how to figure this out. What is the ultimate conflict in this episode? Because it's truthfully not Amy versus Sam. It's not monster versus hunter. Well, I mean, maybe a little bit at the end. But in truth, the biggest conflict in this is a difference between Sam and Dean.
Yeah, competing ideologies.
A competing ideology. One of them who looks at a world that is very much black and white. There is good and there is evil. There's the dutiful son and there is the betrayer. There is monsters and there are humans, period. And that is it. And monster hunting encapsulates that ideology very much so. If you're a monster, you die. That is his approach, and it is not one up for debate. And I agree, Ryan, it probably isn't shit. Wow, maybe until Jack shows up that Dean
really
himself really starts to maybe Amara.
Season 8 with Benny. A bit.
Oh fuck!
Yeah.
See this connection is better when you remove most of season 7. Sadly,
In fact, I believe Sam brings up this episode.
He does.
Brings up Amy.
He does.
Remember when
right.
you killed my friend?
Yeah.
Why
she
are
was
you
hot.
trusting Benny now?
How can you kill a hottie?
Are you fucking Benny? Why, I was
State.
trying to get with Amy. You know,
He was trying to, he wanted her to suck on his brain.
Oh,
He wanted her to give him some brain.
he is attractive.
Jewel
She
Stace?
is.
Yeah, she's cute.
But you're right, Mike. That Benny is the first one that really
Kind of changed his.
broke down that wall, if you will, for Dean.
Who knows
when he
what-
was abroad?
Who knows what
And he met
happened
this
in
weird
Purgatory.
foreigner with a flat cap.
Hey, look, what happens in purgatory
And that's
stays in
Southern
purgatory.
accent.
You were going to say that.
Yeah, of course. It's like Las Vegas.
He
but it's
showed him
purgatory.
whole new worlds
That was the
he had never
worst
seen.
accent.
I wasn't actually trying to do an accent. That's just weird voice. No, I can't do accents very well.
Ryan is just trying to get even with
I'ma
all
show
of the
you.
horrible
Let's-
accents.
You can
he's
probably
done.
do Southern though really
I'm
well.
gonna show you a whole new world, boy.
I'm offended.
Ugh.
I'm gonna show you where I'm gonna get in nice and deep like.
Now get on my magic carpet.
It was in the woods. You know that screams deliverance.
If you don't know, that's my dick.
That's my dick.
Meanwhile,
Yikes.
on the other side of things, we have Sam, who obviously, due to his very nature, since season 1, and explicitly stated in season 2, he has always been somebody who doesn't fit the mold and looks at things in various shades of gray, 50 to be exact, and believes that it's possible.
Just got.
So did I. It took me a second.
Wow, really? I thought that was one of the low effort ones.
It's so bad.
He believes that it's possible to be a monster and still be a good person who can live a normal life.
And I think that ideology is born from his desire to want to be good and not believe that he is this demon
Inherently
spawn.
evil. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And he's been told, he's at his face been told since season 2, you're a monster. You're going to have to be put down. This is how it's going to go for you. No matter how much good you think you do in this world, you're evil and therefore don't deserve a chance. He's constantly fighting against that belief.
Yeah. It's very much a part of his characterization because, I mean, every season when he finds himself, I don't want to say attracted, but drawn to,
The reason he's
Wanna-
always banging the monsters.
he has to believe that there is some good in some of these monsters.
Yeah,
because
there
then
is.
it
When he
gives,
sticks his dick in them,
so they're just,
they are clearly good at that
so
point.
they're just good for sex.
Yeah, like he puts it when his wiener goes in.
That's the good.
That's the good. That's the good part
That good
inside
dick.
them. Yeah, he gives them that good.
What's the monster
Virgin?
version of misogyny?
Humanology?
Monsterology?
Monstology.
Sodomy?
What are we talking
No,
about?
it's not definitely not sodomy.
Jesus. No, but so the main point of how to tell what is the implicit meaning in this episode is where is the main conflict is between Dean and Sam's different opposing views on how not only to deal with monsters, but kind of how to live life and where good and evil lie and whether or not there's any wiggle room. So how do you bring this to life? When you read this script, and if you're the director, yeah, the cinematographer will have an idea of how to light things and frame things and tell that story visually, but you still have to add a lot to that. And more importantly, your job is working with the actors to really bring that to life. So how do you put this on display through your directing?
And first, I just want to say, if a capable see everything we just talked about for 20 minutes, that's pretty much from the script aspect. Yeah. However, how were we able to derive that meaning unless it was visually there? A capable director has to be able to do it. So the fact that we're even able to even have the discussion and derive this type of meaning means that Jensen did his job as a director. We don't know about the signature style quite yet, but he did do his job correctly because that meaning was brought out.
Right. We weren't confused. It's one thing to look at a script. It's another thing to put it into actual visual.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you read a script, there's not a lot there for all of what you're actually seeing.
There's a lot of white on a page.
Yeah.
So a script doesn't have.
You set me up.
Paper's racist now.
If there's black, that means you just, a lot of censorship. The FBI got a hold of that script.
All redacted. All right, guys, good luck. Here's your redacted script. That'd be funny.
I heard that's how Dad writes.
This is all redacted.
You guys don't understand it.
This is the classify.
Is that where all the where all the plot went?
I redacted because it looked like Oreos.
The plot's classified.
What's classified?
You won't understand it until the season finale.
Jesus.
It's fucking stupid, but so good. What if that was true? What if Osric got his script and it was all redacted and he's like, guess what? You get to play a version.
He thought it was redacted because of classified, but what Jensen was doing was just this is shit, this is shit, this is shit.
He wasn't whiteouting his blackouting.
Just like Mark Shepard said in the Inside of You podcast.
Everything they think is fucking hilarious, he's got to make work.
Yeah, he thought it was classified, but it was just the actors are like, what the fuck?
He's marking shit out. Black Sharpie just.
Unfortunately, I don't have clearance for this.
I thought I wrote I thought I wrote more, but apparently I only wrote 7 words.
Oh God, dude.
That's so stupid.
I'm just thinking about like some of the episodes. I'm like, yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Makes sense. The more you think about it, the more it makes sense.
I think the greatest holy man was definitely redacted.
The most holy man was redacted. I wish it was redacted from my memory.
Fuck.
Why was that the one in which you like? Okay, time out.
We're getting way off topic.
We're not live.
This is what happens. Dad is the biggest distractor of our show.
Oh, that too. There was like multiple items they had to get, and Castiel said, "I got one from a Jinn out in the Middle East. He just handed to me. I think I'm a god now, or they're king now." Why didn't we see that one instead of watching some fuckhead wannabe FBI crime episode?
This one still hurts.
Oh my God, dude!
Thomas
it does.
No, man, it hurts me too. We talk about
if those were the ones that you wrote down. There's a crime episode that's terrible. There's a Jinn god in the Middle East. Immediately, of those two, and yet
the network was just crossing it out. All of it.
It was redacted. Jesus Christ. It was redacted. I feel like we need to make a shirt, Supernatural Crossroads, and have shit redacted out on it.
It's just like, okay, here's the shirt. Here's the shirt. Exterior, parking lot night, redacted lines, and then it's like by Andrew Dabb.
Oh, shit. Oh man, I love how like, you know what? Not even going to mention.
No, let's get back on track.
Matter.
Let's get back on track.
Doesn't matter.
So,
Fantastic.
how do you bring some of this stuff to light on the screen when the page is either redacted or mostly white?
Look at Ryan did to us. It was actually Ryan.
That was like a
derailed
solid
it.
5 minutes we lost there.
Yeah, whatever. We're recording. It's not a big deal. We're not
So,
live.
there's several things. One, I'd say the most obvious one with this was the blocking between the actors. There's a lot of intimate scenes. There's a lot of really close conversations between Sam and Amy, Dean and Amy. There's Dean and Bobby. The way they move around, Sam's distant in the room and in the shot and in the space. A lot of that is how you place our characters to where they are in relationship to one another, and also where they are beyond just the physical space. That's one. That's probably the most obvious. Additionally, you have architecture, the location scouting, and how some of the camera work is done. I mean, I think back to the drug deal victim guy, the asshole dude.
Oh yeah.
It's this seedy underbridge troll area. And the intimacy is even in the camera work when we're watching this through the fence. It's right up against the screen. There's that contrasted with like this cold, dark exterior, clearly not safe place is where a bad guy dies. And you compare that to Amy's house. It's a very different environment. It shows us where evil actually lives versus where perceived evil is and actually is not there. So that's another one. And that also is a great way of using the mise-en-scene to purposely humanize your monster, Amy in this case. She's not compared to like season 1, where the skinwalker lives literally in the sewer.
Right.
Or the clown is just like this fucked up demon looking thing with a knife, and various other countless examples. This is somebody who, as she said, goes to PTA meetings, goes to school, is a boring suburban mom.
It's the classic serial killer living right next door scenario where people say, well, he was such a nice man. And then
But
he has
she
37
actually
bodies.
is.
Right. But I'm saying like, it's that same mentality of like, he was such a nice man, but has 37 bodies in the fucking crawl space. Like it's that kind of age old
Domestic
thing,
setting.
right? Where the worst person could be living right next door and you'd have no idea.
Yeah, she's not the person you think has pieces of brain in the fridge.
Right. Exactly.
And it's got that very homey domestic house vibe, something that audiences were accustomed to at that time.
You just slice
and now
a
it's
brain,
the
chuck it in
monster.
the toaster, you
It's
know?
the monster that lives there, not the hunters, not other people.
Yep.
But this domestic setting, it needed to be sold that way, because if she was living under
A bridge.
a bridge like a troll, then the whole parallel
Doesn't work.
to Sam and Dean wouldn't work. You needed to have that domestic setting so we can find the directing and the writing needed to find that aspect that the audience can be sympathetic with, which we're not going to be sympathetic to some monster living under a bridge. She has to be domestic. She has to be just like us so that we understand.
Relatable and human.
Right. If Dean at the end of the episode stabbed a regular monster, we wouldn't care. This was different. It needed to be someone human-like. By humanizing her is why this episode worked.
It's an interesting parallel because the end of the episode has the humanized monster dying at the hands of the hunter, where in the beginning of the episode, it was the human with no tools and resources being, quote, threatened to being killed by a man of medicine. There's that little where they started versus where it ends.
Yeah.
He's fleeing for his life and then take someone else's who's begging for theirs in the same episode.
And some of that implicit meaning that we've been talking about, it wouldn't have worked as well when we were talking about the competing ideologies if we didn't do these, if the directing as well as the writing didn't actually come up with these ideas, because this aspect helped with those parallels, because Dean justifies his actions in order to protect Sam, and let's just say a monster, just like Amy was doing with her kid. There literally
Yeah,
is
with her son.
no difference.
No.
No difference.
And that's kind of an interesting point. Well, I'll say this is an interesting point as well. So much of the intent when it comes to the more personal is about establishing a baseline that places Sam and Dean essentially in the same sandbox as the monsters. They're one thing that season 6 and 7 do a good job of, especially in hindsight, is bringing humanity to monsters, making it a much grayer, less black and white world. And it's no longer demons are clearly evil, no question. Angels are, quote, good, but totally not really. Heaven versus hell, black and white binary system. Now it's we're all here in the trenches, in the mud, fighting for survival in our own unique ways.
Well, what's cool about that is that if you take anything that you do and you put yourself in this world or whatever it is, the more you become accustomed to it, the more you
Can justify it.
You can justify doing things differently because now you've become more accustomed to it. And I think that's what's the beauty of Supernatural is that the more that the boys, the brothers experience things, the more that these black and white situations become more gray because they experience more stuff in the world of Supernatural. And I think we see that throughout the 15 years. And I think it's pretty awesome just to see that kind of I don't know the word I'm looking for, but essentially them
That
just
arc.
that arc of them, I always use the demons, first 2 seasons, demons were this craziest thing you could possibly see. And then now season 15, it was like, whatever. Like, I love that arc of them as they thrust themselves in the world of Supernatural and that
Become
world.
more entrenched in it.
Right. And things become less black and white and become more gray.
Yeah, and most of this was more or less about the main myth arc. And this is, again, when you kind of take out most of season 7 and just staple it to 8, it's more clear as to where things were going. That contradicting ideologies between Sam and Dean, and a lot more, it makes a lot more sense for Dean's ultimate trajectory into seasons 9 and 10.
Mm-hmm.
In season 7, Dean kills a good person / mom because they're a monster and he knows they'll kill again. And this is just what has to be done. He justifies it. And he's incredibly hypocritical because just a few short years later, he himself would be a demon.
Yeah.
And we saw that was what we talked hours about with the mark of Cain, him being corrupted, falling into evil, and all these other things. This is the seed of that concept, that the weird pause in the behind the scenes situation with losing our showrunner makes a little muddied to see. But when you look back at this 10,000 foot view, it's a lot more clear as to how things were going. And there's a chaos in this contradiction with Dean. He is a killer. He can justify it all he wants, but he broke into someone's house, killed a woman, and then told the kid, hey, like straight out of Kill Bill, you're welcome to try when you get older. I'll see you in a few years, sort of thing. That's very, very dark.
Yeah.
And all voluntary. That's the other thing. None of that was stuff he had to do. It's not that Amy transformed, attacked, showed her true colors.
It was on his own.
He chose to do all those things. And that's very, very different than what Sam did. He can't help what he is. He, by his very nature, is a freak and or monster. And yet he theoretically rises above that hindrance, that birthplace, that 2 and 7 shitty hand that he was dealt in order to do the right thing, be a better person, and give a good person a chance who, as you know, was as shown, killed terrible people, a drug dealer and others when needed to because her son was sick, and otherwise had found a decent way to live in the world that she found herself in. And that's makes season 8 all the more painful too.
Well, this episode is just extremely deep when you really break it down, and it never has gotten enough credit. Yes, it was considered an episode that was very well put together. It was well received, but it's also a forgotten episode amongst the Supernatural fandom. And when you really start to look at what Dean was able, or I should say Jensen was able to bring out for Dean, I mean, you have this entire thing that's pretty much designed to show, as you mentioned, this contradiction, this inner struggle for Dean. You know, Dean hides his killer instinct within the righteous, the justified killing. This, I would say, is definitely a part of the symptomatic meaning, which absorbs the other meanings. It incorporates a film story as well as what it seems to be trying to say. It's a level of meaning that one finds that it's typically ideological as it pertains to social values. So you're now delving into moral implications, justified killing, self-righteousness, hypocrisy. And I know people might be getting mad that I'm throwing all these unflattering words at Dean, but it's absolutely true. Dean and Sam are both hypocritical when it comes to each other. That's their downfall.
Yeah.
Dean makes a decision in this episode purely based off selfishness and purely based off his fear of black and white, and monsters are bad and they have to die. And he makes this decision without telling Sam, because he knows the implications of
because he knows it's wrong.
He knows it's wrong but I'm protecting you. He uses the "I'm protecting my brother" as the excuse to kill someone.
Yeah.
And that's where this episode hits home the most, is that he makes a decision purely based on selfishness and his fear and what his complex of I have to do this for the right reasons, right? The greater good.
It's very interesting that he attacks and blames someone for something he's fearful of, but in truth, it's what he himself is doing. It's like the senators who are homophobic and try and ban all that stuff, and they're caught sucking off in the bathroom.
Wow, that was very
that was very aggressive.
That was very aggressive.
But it's the same thing. They hate something.
Did you get to suck someone off?
Did a religious man suck you off or something?
No.
Like without you wanting him to?
Yeah, like did he say that God was in your penis and he had to suck God out?
Oh, wow.
I wasn't very religious growing up. Wonder why. No.
You got a demon inside you, boy.
Boy, you got a demon.
There's only one way to get the demon out.
There's only one way to
penis.
exercise.
I'm going to exercise it with my mouth. Come here.
Jesus.
That's disgusting.
No, but it's that idea of people attack and try to get rid of something they hate, but at the same time, it's also like this inner self-loathing.
Yeah.
Dean, when he says he knows that he kills her and justifies it by saying he knows that she will kill again,
This part's so
could
telling.
mean a couple of different things, including him talking about himself. As we later see in the future seasons with the Mark of Cain and the road he goes down to become a demon and all the stuff he does to justify every decision he makes.
Also season 2 stuff with Gordon Walker when he said, "This is who you are, Dean.
What you're going to become."
Yeah. So
there's that level. And there's also a more fearful side of he's afraid of what Sam might still become.
yeah.
The threat has kind of passed, but when he talks to Bobby, he knows the other shoe. He says the other shoe is going to drop. It's Sam. There's always another shoe. He's waiting for something terrible to happen. And so he's trying to remove all signs of things that question his reality, that make him second guess whether or not Sam's right mentally. Is he okay to do hunting? He can't be saving monsters because that's what monsters would do. And I can't have anything like that threatening my sense of who my brother is.
See, and I also feel like it could be considered a balancing of the scales. And that's why when you start digging into
Also,
this
you could
episode,
get into that, yeah.
Because Supernatural isn't always a show where you dig into the balancing of scales and the finer details of morality and ethics. And that's why an episode like this always has it's always stood out to me, because they are definitely delving into those questions. They are posing the ethical questions. When Dean kills this woman, yes, you could say he's talking about himself. You could say he's talking about Sam when he says, "I know you'll do these things again." But he could also be simply doing course correction, possibly a balancing of the scales, because he has allowed Sam to run free when possibly maybe deep down he knows that maybe he should have been killed because
Is Sam a greater threat?
so maybe he's balancing the scales by doing this. It justifies in
Keeping
his
Sam
mind
around.
allowing Sam to run around.
Yeah, 100%. And I think Jensen really, really understood that
Absolutely.
as he directed this episode. And it's what makes this scene at the end so powerful is that,
There's an obvious greater understanding
yeah,
of these characters.
yeah.
And that's so vital for a director.
And it's in the way he does the scene in which Dean kills Amy is very deliberate and very intentional. The camera blocking, as well as Jensen and what's her last name again?
Who?
The actress. What's her name?
States? Is that how you say it?
Jewel State.
Jewel
States.
States. They're playing off of one another. Very much works to sell Dean's reluctancy to betray Sam and take the life of a person he's saved in his own way or pardoned and forgiven.
She's very much like them
But
in a lot of ways.
but she's also is Sam in some ways. And I think that's where you're right. The balancing of the scales comes to play. They're so similar. If he kills her, maybe he can keep Sam around.
Yeah.
He's doing all of this stuff deliberately so that he can keep Sam and his way of life going in some ways. And he's very delicate with her body. He doesn't just, as later seasons, brutally behead her, decapitate, stab, whatever the hell that he would do, with more and more aggressive nature as we move down season 9 and season 10. Well, mostly 9.
There was definitely an intimate flair to the scene because it wasn't some murderous rage.
Correct.
There was a
There was some-
reluctance.
there was
It's
some
not that he
sadness there.
wanted to,
Yeah.
and the fact that Jensen chose as a director to have himself be very delicate with the kill, it seemed painless. It was a surprise to her. He didn't, taunt her. There wasn't the fear.
He just did it.
He just did it, and
it was
then he
a
held her.
count to 3 and stab her on 2.
Yeah. And that to me, as a director, is what sold this entire episode for me.
Well,
It's that moment is what stands out.
It's a lot more like I said, more reluctancy to do this. He knows in his head he has to do this, and it's the intimacy of, again, he chose to stab her, not shoot her, right?
Yeah.
And again, stabbing someone is very intimate to begin with because you have to be up close and personal. And like you said, he there's an error of respect there, laying her body down instead of just letting her drop.
How many times have we seen him ever delicately,
Never.
Delicately put down someone he just killed?
I know. I wish he would delicately hold me like that.
I never let go.
No, never. Hold me, never let go.
Well, and I think it's also worth noting, he says the other shoe will drop, maybe in a year, maybe in 10, but it always does. He used the same phrase about Sam. It's more of that. I think you're right, Mike, that balancing of the scales. And it wasn't just even, because this final scene is what I always remember about this episode. The other bits, not so much, but this scene between Dean and Amy sticks in my mind. Because it's a very intimate moment. It's a very well done moment, and it's an earned one. This is an example of what good directing and strong writing is all about. Working for that payoff, not just here's a monster, stab. And then we're like, well, I guess that really wasn't a threat. This is building up and making us think we're going somewhere else. And this is the last couple minutes of the episode. And it really does have all that poignancy and weight saved for this moment.
There's no redacting here.
Now, can I just say that I there was a part of this scene that made me giggle, and it was the fact that when she comes through the door, it's clearly light outside, right? It is clearly daytime. When Dean reveals himself, he turns the light on. And it just made me laugh because there was plenty of room light in the room, and it was light outside. I think this scene would have had a little bit, like that scene of him like revealing himself, maybe would have looked a little bit better if it were darker.
Yeah.
And I think the scene would have had a little bit more intimacy of that kill being a little bit dark. It just made me laugh because I'm like, well, it's light outside. Why did he turn the light on? Like, I don't know why that made me laugh.
He's all surprise, bitch.
Surprise,
He's all,
motherfucker.
I saw you.
I saw you when I walked in. It's light outside. What are you doing?
Did you think you were being sneaky?
Yeah, I just laughed. I don't know why. Maybe nitpicky of me, but I just thought it was funny.
Maybe he was like the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy. And he thought he just sit, if he just stood there silently.
Drax, yeah, I have you cannot see me. Okay. Sure, I don't see you right there, guy.
Maybe that's what it was about.
Oh yeah, maybe he thought that
He was
Kitsune.
so still.
Hold on. Maybe he thought that Kitsune's vision is based off movement, like the T-Rex.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm just gonna sit still here, and she can't see me.
All right. So outside of the moment with Amy and Dean, let's move to some of the other action that's happening. We also have the opening sequence, and I think honestly this might have been one of my favorite bits of the episode. The opening sequence of the hospital scene is so great. Dean's escape with the help of Bobby of the hospital that's been overrun by a Leviathan. We've got great cutting between the different actions that is happening. We have the urgentness, we're very much in Dean's sense and in his world. He's delirious, his vision's blurred. Painful action. We're awake. We have questions. Nobody's answering it. God damn it, people.
We can't see all of our surroundings
We
completely.
can't see. We don't know where we are. We know we're somewhere bad, but we don't know where Sam is. We don't know where Bobby is. It's all bad. And the way this entire bit is blocked out and paced out feels very, very good. The intensity of that opening scene really does set the stage, and it's a very well-crafted bit of suspense. I mean, I know the show, and I've seen the episode, and I know what happens. And when Bobby's looking in the rear view mirror, or the side mirror, and he's like, "Come on, Dean." I'm like, "Oh fuck!"
There's urgency.
There's this sense of stress. They're coming at the car. Bobby's not ready. Dean's not there. They're gonna get caught. No,
And this is all in 3 minutes.
yeah.
All of this urgency and intensity, the suspense, it's all in 3 minutes.
The camera is tight on Dean as he's delirious. His vision sways as he sways. Everyone's an enemy. We don't know who. His vision and the camera matches that as he's moving through the hospital,
crutches.
limiting his movement and
The
mobility.
one shot I was talking about earlier was the camera on the gurney.
That's a great shot.
So like, because it reminded me very much of that intimate, like, you're right there with the character, right?
Yeah.
That shot of like, you know, when they do the ghost stories and the ghost shows and they put the camera right in front of the person and they have it on them. So you get the movement and the jarringness of what he's doing. Like that shot.
It's claustrophobic.
It is. And but it gives you the sense of you're there with the character, or you're laying on the gurney as he pushes it. And it's like this visceral kind of right there in the moment shot.
Well, because it's not a steady camera. It's shaky.
Right.
It's bouncing with the movement of the gurney. It feels real, like you're really on there in that moment with them. Like you yourself are running down the hallway, your vision bouncing and the edges blurring.
Love that.
It's very intense, and it has that fight or flight feeling brought to life.
And I don't know if again, I'd have to go back and watch them, but this might be one of those first times they use that kind of shot. And Jensen just throws it in and he never uses it again.
Okay, that's what I was going to say, because you mentioned that at the top of the show, and I was hoping you were talking about that, because I agree that that's a good move. Not only do I like the shot, but I like that he didn't use it again.
Didn't use it again.
Because the biggest
didn't need to.
problem with directors
Didn't need to do it.
is they overuse style.
shot.
The
They
slow-mo,
overuse
Zack
things
Snyder.
when they don't need it. Only
Lens flare.
use it when you need it.
Yeah.
That's more of an aesthetic.
I know, but
Take a dick.
fuck you.
What was I saying? No,
He only uses
so
it
I
the
do
one
agree
time.
with you that the shot on the gurney was only used once, and it was more effective. If it was used more,
If he did it more than once, it would have been weird.
it would have taken away.
I like how because he does a good job of using the camera as an audience insert surrogate and using its full abilities.
Making you feel like you're there.
It's using its full abilities to make it feel more like a person. Shallow focus, creating that claustrophobic, blurry on the edges environment. You can't quite see everything. You don't know where the enemy's coming from. Running down the hallway is just, it very much fits that feeling. And I think that's probably one of the best things that a director can do on a TV show. It's been written for you. There's a lot of set design and production design and camera choices that have already been made, but you have the actors and you have the ability to make us feel a certain way. And that's where that really still can shine, even on a TV show.
Yeah, that shot for some reason stood out to me when I was watching it, because I don't remember them ever doing like a first person kind of straight up in the like
just in
shot,
the baby episode.
Yeah, and that comes after this, so it was really really cool. And I like you said, Mike, I think if he would have used it, it just would have felt weird and like maybe overdone.
It was a smart move to just do it the one
was
time.
it like a 5-second shot?
Yeah,
maybe.
Unfortunately, directors that have styles sometimes become a little self-indulgent. I mean, I love Quentin Tarantino, but even he is guilty of becoming self-indulgent at times.
Oh, 100%.
Zack Snyder, self-indulgent. Michael Bay, self-indulgent. And I'm picking auteurs, people who have signature styles. George Lucas, I don't think I wouldn't call him self-indulgent, but he does have a crazy ass
maybe in his
visual
special effects, he's a little self-indulgent. Avatar or James Cameron is self-indulgent in every movie he does.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams was making a joke. He was early on self-indulgent until people mocked him so much.
He got kind of ripped for it.
Yeah, so at the end of this, though, in my opinion, I don't feel like we can definitively state that Jensen truly has a definitive style yet. Now, we could probably safely speculate at the end of our discussions here that action will definitely be one of those definitive roles.
Yeah, for sure.
It's something we talked about during season 15. And of course, we talked about during our last discussion with these Jensen directing episodes. He has a knack for action. Absolutely. And so far, I feel like that is definitely the if we had to choose a singular definitive style, I could say confidently that would probably be it. But also, when you look at the amount of meaning that he derived from that script and brought to the forefront, look at the discussion we just had. Because of his directing. And I don't want to take away from the writing. Dab and Daniel Laughlin did a good job, but if you don't have the right director, I know those.
Did we just say something good about Dab?
Well, it's probably Daniel Laughlin.
Dabs was all redacted. Laughlin actually wrote shit.
Yeah. He redacted all of Dab's stuff.
Oh, Jesus.
But Jensen did a good job bringing those intimate moments. And they are not the usual supernatural intimate moments that we get between Sam and Dean. These were a callous intimacy almost. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't feel like we can definitively say yet.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would say action is definitely perhaps the only one. And it's weird because in this one, I'd say the best action sequence is the opening. And it's not a fist fight action sequence, because the fight between Sam and the two bullies is nothing to write home about.
No,
but by the time he does Atomic Monsters, it's the best part of the episode.
Yeah, he knows how to bring that urgency.
Yeah, and I think the opening scene especially with the shaky cam on the gurney, is him really knowing how to sell a feeling.
I mean, that sweeping dolly shot that goes past Dean when he's on his crutches in the hallway.
Yeah.
It just gives this feeling that something is coming at him. He doesn't quite know what it is. There's a lot of cool things going on from the directing side in this. Yeah. So again, this isn't a review necessarily. So I guess that's the end of our discussion.
Yeah, we'll save any points for the actual episode because we didn't get into that. But yeah, I think it's too early for a definitive style.
Yeah, we can't really answer.
But I think this is where we start to see some of the seeds between the action, focus on intimate moments between characters. We'll then see blossom into something down the road.
Because what we had for our takeaways from style during our first discussion, part 1, there was paternal, familial, stylistic, which was visceral action, quick cuts on action to add a layer of humor below the surface humor. It was subtle. And then thematic, we questioned or posed the question, overextending oneself because of the story for Bobby. And the only similarities, I would say, would be stylistic. The visceral action,
Yeah.
the quick cuts on action.
I would only even say the visceral action because while he
Yeah.
still has the quick cuts here, it's like 2 or 3.
Yeah, he
The
doesn't
parts that
use a lot.
really sell the visceral feeling and of that is the opening bit, and those aren't quick
Yeah.
cuts. I think he moves away from that as time goes on.
Yeah, quick cuts gets a bad rap, and I think I hate to say rightfully so, but there are times when quick cuts are just used for more than just style. Many times is used to hide your inadequacies
Yeah.
as a director. Ugh, I can't
So is that what I
make
do
a
in
believable
bed?
fight scene.
I quick cut.
Quick cut.
Violently
Yeah.
quick thrust, and then
Yeah.
it must have been good. There was 87 thrusts.
Yeah, I got you 87 times.
I usually just fade out.
Exponential fade.
All right. Jeez, exponential. All right. So the next time we talk about Jensen's directing, it is going to be the Heartache episode. Which season was that? I'm trying to remember here. I think that's in
2012.
season 8.
Right?
Yeah, in season 8. So a whole year will have gone by. We'll have a new showrunner at that time, and we'll see which styles and elements prevail, and if we start to be able to tell a little bit more of what makes Jensen a unique director. So thank you all for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please share it. Please leave us reviews on iTunes. Let other Supernatural fans that you're aware of know about our show. Thank you, and we'll see you all next time.
You little maggot. You are no longer a part of this story. Hey, ass butt.